We're back. I don't know if I have any housekeeping to talk about before we start. I think we'll get more of a schedule down in the fall. I know I probably say that I say that about every time, and sometimes it feels like things just aren't aligned yet. And you're trying to create a schedule, and it just does not, it hasn't really worked. So we will see how it goes to get back on more of a schedule on Twitch and then more of a schedule on YouTube as far as lives go. So I'm going to probably be pursuing that more in September than in August. So let's get through the Lionsgate and see how the fall equinox goes, and we can, go from there. But I did want to come on today and talk about following our dreams. And the myth, one of the big myths about that, well, I guess it's not really a myth. It is a truth to it, but there's a pitfall to why this happens to a lot of us. And it ties a lot back into our ascension process and how we try to kind of fit ascension into something that is not, try to insert a conscious into something that's not conscious and trying to get it to keep working. I do a lot of videos kind of in this theme. It's really been the theme for the year in a lot of these videos. And they feel sometimes they can get really heavy, they're not as light and airy as some of my ones I did last year. So every day I'm going to do something, I try to figure out, okay, can I do one a little bit lighter? And it just feels like maybe it's just been the year of maybe everything's a little bit heavier. This is a little bit heavier. And there's no reason to sugarcoat things when people are going through harder experiences, at least harder from their human, barometer. Like the more challenges, more clearings, more shifting, more aligning, and to get on and do a video that feels like it's almost a little fluffy because you want to make it fluffy and maybe it's not supposed to be. So maybe we'll try to mishmash this one a little bit. We've all heard the myth, right? If you take your dream job or whatever you love to do and make it a job, you're going to end up hating it. Or, don't take what you love and make it a job. I actually went to a retreat. It was a metaphysical retreat, and that was one of the messages from the teacher was, don't take what you love to do and try to pay your bills with it. Which I remember at the time I thought it was so weird that would be the message. And he was a highly, sought after metaphysical guide and teacher. So it wasn't like he was saying something that to me was not rooted in anything. He was a very connected person. So I remember listening to that. I think, yeah, it's a weird message. That is a weird message to give to the students, or the people that were there to listen to him, was don't follow your dreams. Don't go down those roads. Don't make it how you want to pay your bills. Because when you do that, it becomes work, it becomes pressure, and now it's not enjoyable anymore, and you lose that part of yourself. And that was some mixed messaging for me for a while. And I didn't really understand why someone would say that, right? But I also wasn't in a part where I was actually trying to take something I love to do and make it something that supported my lifestyle either. I wasn't doing that yet. So I listened to it, thought it was a little bit of a downer, and then decided I would put it on the back burner, because it's not the first time you ever hear those words, but it's like, I'll put that on the back burner and I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. So I did, right? And years go on. I don't know when I went to that retreat. I think I went to in 2017. Not that it really matters, but just to get to some context of the length of a lot of these journeys for people. And to feel like if you feel like, oh, nothing's moved in 6 months or nothing's happened in a year, I mean, you can go years and years and years and years down this path and not see a lot of stuff moving in your physical world. So I always like to sometimes I'll put some years in and some context to it, so you get an idea of the massive journey we're on when we go through our ascension and how long our awakening can take too. It's not just oh my gosh, I did it in 20 minutes kind of thing. Or I did it in a year, or I did it in 6 months and everything was perfect and I pursued my dream job and I made all this money and blah, 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 all the stuff you hear. That's all human, not ascended realities, okay? Um, Not when it happens that fast. So, what does happen? We go through a part where all of a sudden we figure out things we love to do. You know, whether it's gardening, whether it's, you want to make movies, you want to write books, you want to teach, you want to do Reiki, you want to sell crystals in a shop. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything. It can even be something that feels kind of even fourth or third dimensional in a sense. It doesn't have to be something metaphysical in the beginning, but you will find, I think most of us will go toward more of a creative side when we get into our ascension journeys, and more toward not the more linear jobs we had. You know, we all had a linear job, whether, like, I worked in finance for 20 years, close to 20 years, in a variety of different companies. So I did that, and then I started to maybe trying to transition over, and I'm like, what do I want to do? I really was at that point doing Reiki, like 2014, 2015, and really getting into that. I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be fun? But then you start to sit down and do the math on that. Okay, I made this much money. You know, I was making six figures doing finance, and now let me write down how many Reiki sessions do I have to do a day to be able to support that same lifestyle. And that is kind of what I will see a lot when people start pursuing things. I did the same thing. You know, you start trying to make it support your human realities. And that is, I think, where the myth comes from, where it kills your soul. When you try to do something that you love and pursue that, and you pursue it to the point where you lose the passion for it, and you lose the energy for it, and it kills your passion and it kills everything. It's like, why is that? Why does that happen? It kills your passion, it kills your energy, it kills your soul in a sense. It's how it feels. It doesn't really kill your soul, but it just feels like, I used to love this, now I can't do it anymore. You know? There's a lot of other reasons for that, and I'll get into those in a minute, but because we try to make it support our human reality. We're trying to get it to support all this stuff. One, it's not set up to support. Money is a big thing we will be realigning, redefining as you go through your ascension process. I don't know anyone that gets around this unless they are people who just naturally came in with a lot of money, or they had a lot of money, and their journey's a little bit different in a sense that they might not be creating a lot of stuff to go out and sell, but they're going to take that money and redirect it into people who are doing their ascension process and doing this type of work. So they're more like funding that type of work. But they don't start out that way. Their ascension process is getting to that point where they realize, this money I have is supposed to fund other people. So you do have people that fit into that subset where they might never go out and create some massive stuff, but they are funneling their money into those projects because that's the role they're playing. That's what they're supposed to do. So you get people who are in that situation. But for a majority of us, you know, we start to transition over, and the old human linear jobs we had that supported human systems, we can't do them anymore because we realize the human systems are bullshit and they're not going to last. It's all a bunch of garbage. So how can we continue to do that kind of work? So we end up transitioning out of those jobs because we can't stay in them. You know, we can't continue to do them. We can't continue to do them. We don't believe in them. We don't have any passion. Talk about losing your passion and losing your drive. You lose it all for those types of jobs because it's just a waste of time. And I think a lot of people saw how jobs affected them when we went to the COVID realities, which is a big part of those realities, was to show people how much better you felt when you weren't in the environment anymore, when you weren't doing that stuff. And you might now, and you get an email now and it twists your soul. You know, you just feel like it would twist you up. And you'd even have to think about it again. And it caused a lot of people to really look at those jobs and look at what they were doing. And wow, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to continue to do this? So we can keep those jobs for a while. We shift them. We're there to raise the consciousness of certain places. So for some people, if you're still in those jobs, doesn't mean you have to quit tomorrow. Universe will move them out when it's time to move them out. Don't worry about it. You might know it's time to go soon. You might be able to shift it, move the chairs around a little bit on the Titanic. upgrade it somewhat, but when it's done, and we move on. And then we have to figure out other ways to make money. And I remember I would listen to a teacher and she would say, set up your next thing. So when this thing ends, you'll have something to go into. And I had that, I had something set up with the next thing. I had it all set up. I had a nest egg set up. So when I transitioned over, I could go more fluidly into it. But what I realized after a while is I was trying to support what I had. All the stuff I had in my human realities with the money I was making from these other realities, and either the money's not coming in, it's not enough to cover all the stuff that we had already established for our human life, our human template, our human reality. It wasn't enough to cover any of that stuff. I will say it, when you're spending $500 to get your hair done every 6 weeks, which I was doing, when you're spending, the money I would spend was unbelievable. It didn't cover any of that stuff, right? And you're trying to even go through, even using your nest egg, and I was still even using the money I had saved to continue to keep all these balls in the air and not understanding you can't use the money. You can use the money you made in your human reality to support your human reality. That sounds like a oxymoron, but we're going to go with it. But you can't use that money. That money is not going to come in. You're not going to take different vibrational revenue sources and support the old human stuff. The money will not come in for it. It won't happen. And you're going to end up losing that. Our humans are going to feel like we lost it. Everyone around us who's in their human realities or human consciousness will feel like we lost it. But what happened was it dissolved because that's not where you are anymore. Right? That is not the reality we're trying to support anymore. So now that dissolves away. Okay, so now that dissolves away, and now we have to build something else. And we're not trying to support our old human realities anymore with our soul-driven passions, with what makes our soul sing. And that's going to change too. I started out doing Reiki. I did medium readings for a while. I did all sorts of stuff. A decade ago or whatever, just because you're also honing your skill a little bit, you're tapping into what you have consciousness for, you're tapping into your energy field, you're tapping into others' fields and assisting them with stuff, and you're supposed to do that. One, you're learning what lines to cross, what lines you don't cross, when you're intruding, when you're not intruding, There was a time when anyone who was pregnant would come to me and want to know, is it a boy? Is it a girl? What is it? That's very easy to figure out the sex of a child. I don't know what it is. It's just very easy to pick up on that. Now sometimes I would say, sometimes they'll flip on you. You'll think it's going to be a boy, and then all of a sudden, a few months right after the birth, it's like, oh no, that's a girl. But in general, for whatever reason, that was always super easy to do. Super easy to tell what's going on with the pregnancy. All that stuff was really easy. That was right in that moment, and you just realize you're really connected in that moment, and you can kind of feel all this stuff. So you kind of get into a lot of those different careers, journeys, whatever you want to call it, and you kind of hone your own skills, and then you realize, I don't really want to do that anymore, because a lot of times that will become disempowering for other people, and you move out of the phase where you're looked at as knowing more than somebody else does, because now that's not doing anybody any good. Because the whole part of ascension is connecting with yourself. And if you surrounded yourself with people who are depending on you for their connection to what's going on with them, then now that is not a balanced, it's not balanced, it's now distorted, and it's not pure. Because now you're almost saying, I remember going to doctors back years ago, and they would say, well, come back and see me in a year and I'll tell you what to do. Or I'll tell you what to do, I'll tell you what to do. And whether it was a medical doctor or now when we get into this soul type of work or stuff that feeds our soul more and we're really tapping in, it can sort of bring in that distortion. Oh, no, don't come. They don't want to do anything until they ask you first. Not understanding that for a while they can do that, but for a while they have to connect on their own. They have to go through their awakening, their process. And so we kind of start to get out of a lot of those jobs too. So when I say you might start doing one soul journey, and and really want to be into this, and then all of a sudden, no, you know what, now I feel like I've outgrown it. A lot of people talk about changing their website and changing their how they describe themselves or what they do like every couple of days, because it can change that fast, but now that feels outdated. Now I can't really do that anymore. I don't look at stuff the same way anymore. I don't look at paranormal stuff the same way. I don't look at the dream world the same way I used to. I have a different consciousness of it. I have a different understanding of it. So there's some things that we just kind of outgrow, kind of like when we're in our human realities, we outgrow certain things. We outgrow certain activities we do. We outgrow certain behavior, and it kind of happens in a higher consciousness space. But in our ascension journeys too, we just outgrow it, and we realize, I don't want to keep doing that. I don't want to be the crutch for someone, and I don't want to, that's not where I want to be. I need to go and do something else. So you're going to find you're going to move through a lot of these different things, and you won't just do one thing. There's not going to be one thing you do and go like, oh, that's all I'm going to do is this one thing forever. It's not like in our human realities where we're one thing we did to make money. There'll be a lot of different things you're going to bring in to do to make money, to bring money in. Because there's also that mentality that you shouldn't charge for anything that feeds the soul. I've seen that quite a bit, You shouldn't charge for anything. It should be free. Whereas, these people who are saying that, they don't really work for free, but they want you to work for free. So you're going to encounter a lot of that type of stuff. And for a lot of that is also for us to define our own value and decide what our value is. But when we get into this trying to support an old reality, an old template with the money where we want to start bringing in from a higher consciousness pursuit, shall we say, the money doesn't come in for it because it's not there to support that. It's there to build something else. And for a while, you might have no money come in from a lot of these endeavors, which that's happened to me for years, because one, you're going to try to funnel the money into the human reality, which you're not supposed to. You're supposed to let that dissolve away and create something else. That's why sometimes the money doesn't come in and it just dissolves away anyway because you can't pay for it anymore. And it's your universe's way of moving it out so you can now go create something else. But it won't look the same. You can't try to pursue a soul-aligned job and then force it back into supporting human beliefs, human systems. Because it will kind of feel like it kills your soul a little bit, which is, that's a little melodramatic, but that can be how it feels. Like, oh, I used to love this and now I dread it. Because now I have to do so much, and I have to, if it's a restaurant, I have to turn over so many times, the tables so many times, and make the rent, and blah, blah, blah. And to support this place. And maybe it's supposed to be a smaller place. Maybe it's supposed to be not even a big restaurant. Maybe it's supposed to be what do they call it? A food wagon, or I can't remember what they call those things, but you get the point. What we thought it was going to be won't be what it's going to look like. And a lot of times we resist that because we're trying to support an old structure. We're trying to support something we already built. We're trying to support something and keep it all going where it all looks like it's okay and nothing's going to change, because we don't want to judge ourselves for when everything starts to change and collapse, and we don't want others to judge us too when it starts to change and collapse. And everything starts to go away, and we don't want people to sit there and look at us and go, okay, how did that happen? How did you lose all of your stuff you built so long for? And we'll look at it that way for a while ourselves till we start to clear that, and we start to clear that doubt and clear that why didn't it work? It can't support that stuff. And you won't even get any money coming in until you realize what you really want to do with it. You don't want to bring it back into supporting your old human life. Those things were not aligned. They're aligned to a different template. They were aligned to a different version of us, a different aspect of us. They're not going to be supported by money you're making from soul endeavors. It's just not. It is not going to be. And you make this shift, if you're about to make this shift, you haven't made this shift yet, or you're on the end of making the shift, this is going to resonate more with you in those moments when you don't understand why didn't that money come in when I needed it there. And I see this so many times, people give up on their dream because I'm not making enough to make all this stuff, to keep all these balls in the air. Well, the point is, you're supposed to let the balls drop. You're not supposed to keep all this stuff. All this stuff is stuff you don't need. You'll have exactly what you require. You'll have what you need, but you don't need all this stuff. You don't need all of the stuff that you think you do, that we thought we did, because we used all that stuff to try to fill all the voids we had on the inside, all the holes we had on the inside. And once we start filling those holes with our soul and the things that inspire us and what we want to create, what we want to do, what we really want to do. And there'll be a time you might not know what that is. There was a long time in my life, even, when I'm in my human template and in my human experiences, or if someone asked me what was my dream to do, I couldn't have told you. I don't know if I even had one. I didn't even have the connection to even tell you what that would have been. I don't know what that would have looked like. So when we're in those realities, we get jealous when we see somebody who, my whole life I've wanted to, make movies, or I wanted to do this, but then I get into the business and it's crushing you, and it's crushing your creativity because you're trying to play by somebody else's rules. You're trying to play by society's rules and the rules that we're creating for ourselves, that we have to keep all this stuff going. Instead of maybe all this stuff has to go. I remember seeing, I don't remember what it was, but it was some lady who had, she'd changed jobs and gone to something she really wanted to do. And she was like, well, I need to trim expenses. And I was like, oh, I'll cut down going to Starbucks every day. I'll cut down my latte. And, it's kind of a very micro example of the kind of cutting we have to do. But it was that kind of thing where you have to start thinking about what is supposed to stay, what really matters here. I need to be able to pursue what I want to pursue with freedom and not with the pressure of having to do all this stuff in this amount of time. And if you're going to do sessions for people going through ascension, or sessions for people for whatever, if that's what you want to do and you feel strongly that's what I'm supposed to do, how many sessions can I do a day? What do I charge a session? You start getting into all this mind-numbing stuff to support things that are already, if anyone has ever been in the finance industry, they're sunk cost. These are things you've already got. These are realities you've already developed. These are not important going forward. I will tell you, any of that stuff I worked so hard to try to keep, and so hard to keep in place, and the stress I put on myself to keep all that stuff in place, I have none of it now. I don't even remember what happened to it. Half of it, I think I gave it away. It doesn't matter. I don't miss it. I do not care about it. None of it mattered. A lot of it just anchors us down to old realities and old timelines, and none of it matters. So when you hear these myths about, if you pursue your dream and then it becomes work, it's not fun anymore, that's furthest from the truth. We make it not fun anymore because we're trying to make it a human job to support a human life that we're trying to technically leave behind when we go into our ascended journey. But so much of, to me, learning what ascension really is pulling ourselves out of those realities and our life shifting and really changing. As I've said, if your life hasn't shifted and changed from when you started your journey, something's probably hanging you up a little bit somewhere. And if it continues to be a struggle, because we will shift, we have to. Your ascended timelines do not look like your human timelines. They do not. I cannot stress it enough. Anyone who's gone through different timelines will attest to this. They do not look the same. They're not what you thought they were going to look like. They're not what the people you thought they were going to be with. It's completely different. It's completely sideways. It's completely backwards. They are awesome, but they're not what you thought they were going to be. And, I can remember going on vacation when I was in my human templates and my human realities, and going on vacation, and that was such a big deal, to get away from it all. And you got to get away from your life for a week or 2 weeks and not have to worry about all that stuff. And now it's like, boy, why would you take a vacation? My life is a vacation in a sense, there's nothing to get away from. If we're trying to get away from our life, that says a lot about our human lives. I want to get away from my life for a while. I want to go do something else. I want to forget about all this stuff. I don't want it to weigh me down. I want to be able to do something else, even if it's for a couple weeks. And you get into that time when you're off a long period of time. You don't even know what day it is. You know what month it is. none of that stuff ceases to matter, because you kind of start to get out of that. The human reality keeps us very embedded in time and the month and the day and the minute and the hour, and and you tend to remember some of the rougher rides you had, in it, and some of the ones that pushed you the farthest. And I would say some of the worst bosses I had pushed me the farthest. And it kind of can, because in a way it's seems like it's kind of around the barn, but those are the ones you remember, the ones that really pushed you to go deeper and deeper in on what you were able to do, even if it was even in human templates and in a human mindset. You can see the distortion of it later, but when your universe pushes you like that to let go of this stuff and to keep going and let this stuff go, do not let this stuff hold you down to where you stop doing what you really want to do. And I see so many people get to a certain part and then they want to go back and go, well, maybe I'll go back and do this other job I used to have part-time, because I can keep, I can bring more money in if I do this, and then I'll work on this, and it's just not going to work. You have to really look at, maybe I don't need the house. Maybe we pare everything down. Maybe something we could go smaller. Do we need the car? Where do we live? Do we have to have a car? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. There's so many things that you will find, decisions you will have to make. And when we're in, sometimes we get kind of thrust into certain things, like we might lose a job and go, I want to go pursue this for a while, right? And I remember doing that for a while back like a decade ago, and so I want to go do Reiki sessions, or because I was at this time where I got ripped from a job, and it was like, oh, let me look for another job. But I was like, oh, maybe I'll just go ahead and go into what I really want to do, because at the time I thought that's what I really wanted to do. And I just couldn't figure out how to make it work. The math work. I'm like, this math just doesn't work. So I went back and got another job doing finance for another 4 or 5 years before I then did make a switch over. Because it wasn't time yet. There were still contracts I had to do, the contracts I had to fill, and I wasn't ready to let this stuff go yet. I wasn't ready to let the human reality go. If I had been, it might have been different, but I wasn't ready yet. And I needed the more time, more connection with myself to then say, okay, now I'm ready to go. And now I can understand why these things are happening the way they are. Sometimes when you start watching that human reality collapse, it is so just deeply saddening, because it's not just that reality, it's all of our human experiences. It's our whole human life, in a sense, we're watching collapse. And that one thing, it's our whole, it's everything. It's the whole end of that experience. And it might seem kind of over the top how we react, because it's so sad for us to watch it all go and to watch it all kind of fade away. And depending on how attached we are to it, but it does get easier as you go, because you just realize none of it really matters. Like, none of this stuff really matters. It's all just kind of dressing. It's a reality. It dissolves, it realigns, it reappears. And we're the ones that are doing that. We're kind of doing it for ourselves to let a lot of this stuff go. So no matter where you are with what you feel at this moment, your dream is, right? Because your dream will change. What feeds your soul now, it'll shift as you get more connected with your soul. A lot of things we thought really fed our soul kind of fed our ego too. And now we go into the next version of what we really want to do. And what do I really want to be able to do? And what's the next thing I want to do? Because it won't just be one thing. It won't just be one thing. And we see the backlash. We will see that people, they don't want to pay for that. Or another thing I'll see is bartering. I'll see a lot of people I have a lot of people who do similar work that will get into people who want to barter with them, right? And normally bartering means people want to give you what they want you to have, but they don't really care what you want out of the agreement. They just want, this is what you can have, and they just want to make sure they get what they want out of the agreement. But I'll always say, if this person went to the store, would they barter for groceries? Do they barter for the clothes they really want to buy? Or the vacation they just went on? No. But they want to barter, with people who do this type of work, right? So bartering itself, there's nothing wrong with bartering. but there is a distortion to it when you're the only person somebody wants to barter with, and everything else they're going to pay for it because someone else won't barter. It's like, we'll trade services. I'll see that a lot too. We'll trade services. I'll do this and you'll do that. And for a while that might work. But to me, it always kind of comes back down. People want to give you what they want you to have and not really what you would want out of the situation. And there's a distortion there of, are they bartering everything else? Can they really not afford to do it, or they just don't see the value in paying for it? That is the biggest hurdle, because we will be paying for stuff that you never thought you would pay for, but you do it out of respect for the people that are doing the product. You do it out of respect, whether it's something you really are really that supportive of or not. In a sense, you do it because it does show respect. And when people don't want to pay because they don't respect what you're doing, after a while you have to move on from that. And there's just a lot of, the whole money thing can get, I did a class on it. I think I've done probably at least 10 hours of the videos on the whole money and how that shifts and changes as we go, and why it doesn't come in and why it can't support the old stuff. And you get to a point where if it's aligned, the money will come in for it. And that's why if I'm supposed to do especially extra stuff, like if I do supposed to go or do a retreat somewhere, or if I want to go take someone somewhere and they ask me to take them somewhere, especially when you're dealing with kids and stuff. They say, I want to go do this. I'm like, well, let me see. If the extra money comes in to go, I'll know it's aligned and we'll go. And if the money comes in, okay, now I know I'm supposed to go, because there's something in it I've got to go do. It's something I've got to learn, a lesson in it for them, an experience for them that they need to have. I've gotten to know there's not that many things, not that many places I really want to go to experience anything. You kind of have your own little heaven at home in a sense, and you don't feel the need to go do a lot of that stuff. Whereas in our human experience, we were always looking for inspiration, whether it be concerts or lectures or traveling, and some people will still be into the traveling during certain parts of their ascension. That just never was really I never really felt drawn to it, but there are a lot of people that would do that. I did more traveling in my human existence than I do in these realities now. So I guess I think that's about it on that one. I'll check the chat and see if I have anything people want to ask. Okay, I don't have anything, so I don't think there's anything else I want to bring into it. I think that's enough for today. Just really look at where you are with it and what you're trying to support with that dream. Because when you look at what you're trying to support, and we're trying to kind of, just take one thing out and plug something in, it's not a plug and play. These realities are not plug and plays. You can't just take one revenue source out and now I'm going to make money from doing this and plug this in. And all of a sudden it's not making the money. Now it's stressful. Now it's not fun anymore. Now it's not creative anymore. Now it's just completely, making you nauseous inside. The myth is there for a reason, but the lesson in that myth is not what we think it is. It's not to give up on it. It's to stop trying to fuel and feed old human realities with the money from those endeavors. It's not what it's there for. And for a while, you might do stuff on the side like that, but be feeding it into other things. Like, I do at this point need to do this retreat, or I do want to do this class, and the money is coming in to afford these kind of things, but not the core stuff right now. The core stuff is handled by this other linear job I have, but the extra stuff of my soul aligned stuff is coming in here. You could see that transition for a while. But at some point, we all have to transition. And a lot of the videos I've done this year are about, and even last year too, are about that transitioning. And we start to do that transitioning to not expect it to look the same and feel the same and be the same, because it's just not going to be. And we put a lot of stress on ourselves and a lot of pressure on ourselves to support the stuff that we're not supposed to keep, and we're not supposed to keep going. And that's probably the biggest thing we learn as we go, that all of it's going to go anyway. You can let your universe pry it out of your cold dead hand, or you can just let it go. Because like I said, none of the stuff I worked so hard to keep, I even have anymore. None of it. I couldn't even tell you what happened to it, or whatever it even was that I thought it was so important. It's just not that important. when you get into what you really start to value in your ascended realities, none of that stuff matters. It's all interchangeable. It's all replaceable. If for whatever reason I want to go out and get something like that again, I can go out and get something like that again. But a lot of that stuff keeps us so anchored in old realities, old timelines. And you can really see that to the extreme when you go to people who just have everything from their past and they're so ingrained in it and so just completely obsessed with it all. You know, it's just all the old timelines, all the old stuff, and they just can't let any of it go. And that's kind of mimicking inside, they can't let any of it go. And they just want to hold on to all of it, and they don't want any of it to go, they don't want to let any of it go. And it just keeps them so stuck in those timelines. So, all right, I think we're going to end it there today. And I will see everyone next time. Bye.